usually Craig Stobo, erstwhile and actually influential economic and social and political and financial commentator, joins us after 10 o'clock. But because I'm doing breakfast this morning, Craig has very, very kindly consented, and I know how busy he is, to talk to us a bit earlier. And he joins us now. Craig, great to have you here, mate. Listen, I was just thinking about you last night as I was at the school prize giving, in actual fact, and I was thinking, what were prize givings like when we were at school and how much they've changed? And the thing that struck me as very, very different as I was watching school prize givings now is the huge amount of money that is given to recipients in forms of scholarships to get you to tertiary institutions in this country. For example, last night at my daughter's prize giving, Craig, I was watching Otago University, and I think they doled out about 10 scholarships, all worth, anything between one and 5,000. One was worth $10,000 just to get you to that university. Is that a common phenomena that you've experienced as well?
Good morning, Michael and listeners. Serendipitously, I drove from Queenstown to Oamaru last night for the Waitaki Boys High School prize giving, which was usually held in the Hall of Memories, but that's been under renovation. So it was held at the Waitaki Girls High School Hall, and as the chair of the board said, he'd be trying all his school days to get into the Waitaki Girls High School, and here he is as board chair presiding over a prize giving. So that attracted a bit of humour. But my take on last night was a few things. Yes, there are really important prizes for the boys. The Milner Prize, the Sir Dennis Blundell Award, Citizenship Awards, which are kind of coveted awards for various attributes of boys that graduate. It's also a celebration of all the leavers. It's a leavers prize giving, so we celebrate the boys that are leaving and going out into gap years or workforce or travel overseas. And there's usually some fantastic music, and last night we had this amazing band, Delhi Waters, led by a young schoolboy, Albert King. Just remember that name and that band. They won the regional Rockfest competition, outstanding. But in the address given by the rector, he commented, and I thought about this a lot last night after I left, this is the first group of boys that have graduated after 5 years at school, having started at lockdown in 2020. Now, you think about your experience in school, and these guys had to go through the stress of lockdown, separation, the breakup of the school year, and to come out the other end after 5 years is a tribute to those guys and their ability to hang in there with what some people call grit, that persistence, that discipline to hang in there. So I sort of paid a personal tribute to them in silence around, well, good on you guys. You did a great job. But to your point, there were prizes from Otago University, from Lincoln, from Canterbury, for boys to go on. And there was support from the community and from donors for other different types of prizes too. So not just university-sponsored, but private sector or old boy-sponsored prizes, which is fantastic to help the kids move on to the next stage.
I would have seen, Craig,
about
$60,000 or $70,000 worth of scholarships given out last night. And that compares and contrasts greatly with when you were. And I guess the answer to that question is because it's expensive to go to university or tertiary studies now. It was free when we were young.
Yes, and you're right. You've still got the loan program, but they don't have the level of support. The value of the bursary is diminished. You didn't have the support for living costs. I recall, I think my last year, the cost of a flat, or my contribution to a flat in Dunedin was $18 a week, believe it or not. And I think the government payout was about $16 or something a week. So, kind of paid for your rent and you had to try and get your food. Virtually impossible now, isn't it, for those kids to get, income from the government to pay for living expenses.
And it's an absurdity.
Which just means it just goes to student loans.
Well, and it's also an absurdity because people who are self-employed can, and who are, got a good accountant, can get their children access to the student allowances, whereas 2/3 of the students who don't have that kind of background have to borrow the money themselves and can be anything up to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of debt when they leave. That sort of inequity really grates, I have to say, with that generation too. They don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I think from my own experience working during the holidays, either high country sheep farms or hay carting and go back to university, then find out some of my mates hadn't worked at all, had a great time, holiday overseas, and came back and got a hardship allowance. I thought, this system is crook. Just on that note, though, I think we should be alive to the possibility that, the government doesn't have to run the student loan program. That student loan program could be run by a financial institution and charge for that. Now, I'm just thinking into the future around the government's fiscal pressures and, why do they get involved in running a student loan program? It can be done by somebody else and take away the costs of running it. So, as you will be aware from my commentary around this government, we're still on the great unwind, quote unquote. Stuff that started 3-4 years ago is still being unwound, and there'll be more to come as they focus on not so much cost issues in terms of the bureaucracy, but programs. It's the cost of these programs they'll start to look at, I believe.
Can I ask you a question, Craig? Just completely differently, but in your professional guise. You are, I think, the chair of the local government, was it Finance Authority? Is that the proper name for it?
Unfortunately, a bit of a misnomer. It's the local government funding agency, but strictly speaking, we're financiers. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
At the moment, throughout the local government sector, they're all trying to struggle with this idea of, okay, what are we going to do with the water? And all over New Zealand, local government is trying to work out if they can go it alone, like Auckland or Canterbury, or they have to coalesce for efficiencies of scale and how they're going to do it. They're making those decisions as I talk to you now. One of the issues there is that they say that they are being forced into what are called CCOs, council-controlled organisations, Craig, as a model, because that's the agency that you are, can lend to them more money than you could lend as a percentage, I guess, of their assets to an individual council. Is that right or wrong?
That's not quite correct. As I read the government advice on this, councils have choices to keep their water in-house, or they can set up a CCO, as you say, that they own themselves, 100% owned by council, and therefore controlled by council, so there's no change in ownership. Or they can seek to go into a partnership with other councils in their region to jointly own a CCO where they, they put their assets, their water assets into that CCO, and they have multiple ownership. So they've got choices, but what they do have to do, I think the deadline is June or September quarter next year, they have to provide a plan to the government on the state of their assets and what they intend to do with them. LGFA, the organisation that I chair, is agnostic around what solution councils wish to choose. We'll support them as they currently are. We'll support them with a 100% owned subsidiary, or if they wish to join us with others, we'll support them then as well. The thing that would be is clearly coming through is the ability of the sector to understand the choices and the costs and benefits of those choices. So if you were to put your assets into a council-controlled organisation, we'll fund that up to 5 times revenue, which is higher than is the case with the parent councils, but we require the parent council to guarantee or provide uncalled capital to make sure that CCO is looked after. But the key thing is the efficiencies that could arise from this, where that CCO or that multi-owned CCO can manage its assets in a much simpler, direct, efficient form. By that I mean there are just very much fewer moving parts. There are the water assets, there'll be the debt against those water assets, there'll be water charges, and there'll be OPEX in terms of interest and salary costs. And then it's a self-contained organisation, separate from the council. And the council can focus on collecting rates, just separate from water charges, to service the funding needs of halls or parks or rubbish collection, etc., that would be entirely separate from the water assets. In some cases, water assets represent over 50%, of the assets or more of a council.
Yeah,
so
that's
that
right,
it's substantial. So to put that into a specialist subsidiary, and I'll call it specialist, where it focuses with very clear commercial criteria around making sure that the CapEx, the capital expenditure required for renewals or repairs, is adequately catered for by way of the appropriate water charge. It's really important. And I think that's the bit that the councillors are trying to grapple with. What does that thing look like, and how does it fit within the council's other plans?